Okay, part one, rhythm. This is also something that's often called intonation in the English teaching business. I sort of didn't title the part that way because intonation has a couple of different meanings, even when you're talking about language and not music. And in a native context, it usually really refers to the tone of voice you're using, um, and sort of the connotative or emotional value you're putting on your words. And that is something that's potentially important for us here, but I want to separate that from, and that'll be the part two. And now is the part which, I'm separating it from what we usually call intonation in language teaching, which a student once told me, and I think pretty right on the money, is pronunciation of sentences as opposed to words. Right? We say pronunciation, we're usually talking about words. And the thing is, sentences have their own pronunciation too. It's also called sentence stress, or you might call it emphasis or accent. But it's about why, for example, we might say, try it, you'll like it. And we don't say, try it, you'll like it. And probably people wouldn't understand that because it's just too weird. And it's weird because of the intonation. The words are the same. Used to be people thought that these kind of rhythms, intonation in that sense, were something that students couldn't learn, students of a language, that that was a native thing and it wasn't transferable. That idea is pretty much gone out the window. There's a window over there. And now we, generally regard that as something relevant and that can be learned, and it can. Now, I don't have time to go very deeply into the subject today. Perhaps that could be another day's video. There are some rules you can follow, and we could look at some examples and so forth. But I think in 3 or 4 minutes, what I'll be able to say is just a few very key points. English is not a syllabic language in the sense that many of the world's languages are. That's according to David Crystal, the author of the, I want to say, Welsh linguist, who's been quite famous for a long time and happens to be the author of the Cambridge Encyclopedia of the English Language. Okay, he was the one who gave me that comparison. I don't know so many languages, just English and Spanish. But just right there, I mean, we can see that Spanish is syllabic. Syllabic, by that he meant you hear every syllable. Now, of course, English has syllables, but we don't pronounce them all, and we certainly don't pronounce them all equally. Instead, English is a content-based emphasis system in intonation or rhythm. That is to say, the content words, the words that really carry our meaning, are louder, are heard more. Now, that doesn't mean you shout those words. It's just it's a little bit more emphasis, and we reduce or eat, as you guys say, some of the other words, which are, we call them grammar words. Okay, so that's sort of the separation: grammar words, content words. Grammar words, I'm going to give you some examples, and these are things that you generally don't want to emphasize. Pronouns, modal verbs, auxiliary verbs, really common verbs like to be or have. Well, that's, when it's an auxiliary. Can. Prepositions, they never get emphasized, just about. And conjunctions like and. Take and as an example. We never say and when we're talking, really. We say like, that's what we say. What's your favorite soup? Chicken and noodles, chicken and dumplings. Is that TV color? No, it's black and white. Like they exist anymore. But you see what I'm saying? They get reduced. And I know from experience that that's the problem, for most students when they're listening. If we're listening to a song or a video or something, you know, an interview, whatever, the hard words are the little words that you almost don't hear. And they tend to be predictable. And I think the only way to get used to hearing them is do a lot of listening so that your brain sort of adapts to that and just sort of lets those go by, lets them in, and you just sort of follow what's going on. Even if you don't hear like all the sound, because you won't hear all the sound of the word. So at the end of this, we should talk about ways you can practice, and maybe give you some ideas of some listening practice you could do. One thing about listening and developing your ears is the more the better. It's one of these cases where it really is all about quantity and not quality. Okay, is that true for coffee too? I have to think about that. Anyway, I don't care what you listen to. If they're talking in English, really the important thing is that you like it, that you're interested. Find something, and then just the more the merrier. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. The less of a headache. The more you understand. Um, Practicing speaking is harder to do if you're alone, but maybe there's some things we can try. So I'll try to give you some ideas about that right at the end of the video. So the main takeaway, I'm already at the 4-minute mark. 5, 6 this is going out of hand, getting out of hand. I can't really see. I should put my glasses on. Emphasize content words. Remember that English is syllabic, and maybe another day we can practice sort of that. I'll just give you one example. If you don't really know what I mean, I'm going to do this kind of quickly. I want you to compare these two sentences. I'm going to say them, and I'm going to say them without any kind of intonation, just sort of staccato, to use another musical term. Okay, and then we're just going to compare them and talk about how they would be pronounced or intoned, or what kind of rhythm they might have. Okay, first sentence, and shout out to Jerry Sweeney at the ESADE University. I got these two sentences from him, and with the same idea. So it's a good example. Just keep it alive for him. Elizabeth resides in Bristol. Okay. Second one, Liz lives in Bath. He's English, you might imagine. I'm American. Doesn't matter. English is Esperanto today, so we're gonna, it's all good. Now, how many syllables in the first sentence? The Elizabeth sentence. Okay, that one had 9. The other sentence, the Liz sentence, that one had 4. So you have more than double in the first one. You might suspect, if you're coming from a syllabic kind of language, that, there's the first one, it takes longer to say, but it doesn't in English, okay? It's exactly the same, because I'll show you. It's Elizabeth resides in Bristol. Liz lives in Bath. If it's faster, it doesn't matter. Elizabeth resides in Bristol. Liz lives in Bath. So if you want, you can practice that sort of thing. I don't know if that really helped, but something we can talk about another time. We're going to go on to part 2, which is tone of voice.